For a close relationship that can last us through all the years of our life, no doll can take the place of aces back-to-back. Still, you will admit that Mendy's cheesecake is the greatest cheesecake alive. Marlon Brando, the legendary Godfather, is not only known for his stellar acting, but also for his raw, instinctive personality and deep contempt for societal norms. He once has declared, "I don't hate Hollywood. I just hate the people who make it tacky." And among the A-listers, there were plenty who earned his scorn more than anyone else. Some were co-stars who drove him mad by just singing for money. Others were cinematic legends who enjoyed tormenting people for sport. And then there was one particular person whom Brando hated to the core. The one he considered the embodiment of all things fake, frivolous, and merely a product of outdated Americana. So who are the stars Brando utterly despised? Watch this entire video, because the last name will shock you. Frank Sinatra, the guy who just sings for money and flippant as a girl? The feud between Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra is one of Hollywood's most notorious conflicts of the 1950s, a war between raw, instinctual art and polished perfection between a strange beast and a perfect gentleman. Brando was the rebel, born to break the mold, while Sinatra was the icon of absolute control and sheen. When the two collaborated on the film Guys and Dolls Ning 55, the set became an outright battlefield. Tension simmered from the very first day. Sinatra arrived in a crisp white shirt, expensive Chanel cologne, and the confident stride of a king. Brando showed up late in a wrinkled t-shirt, eyes still groggy, a cigarette dangling from his mouth, bodying the image of an outlaw. Sinatra didn't hesitate to publicly mock Brando. The self-important jerk pretends to be deep, just mumbles and whispers to look artistic. Brando read with contempt. He only knows how to act cool and is as flippant as a woman. And the set was perpetually on edge, waiting for an explosion. In one scene, Sinatra actually spat in front of Brando, a deeply humiliating act. Brando simply tilted his head, subtly wiped his shoe, and quietly retorted, "Thank you. At least you showed me the trash inside you." But the war escalated. Brando, cunning and vicious knowing Sinatra intensely disliked eating custard, secretly convinced director Joseph Mankiewicz to change the script, forcing Sinatra to eat the dish for one scene 9 times in a row. With no fake filming techniques available, then Sinatra was forced to eat it for real. By the 9th take, he threw his spoon down, almost gagging, and yelled, "You're scum, Brando." Less. Brando calmly adjusted his collar, simply replying, "We're one and the same, brother." Following the incident, the crew had to schedule separate shooting times to avoid further clashes. Many recalled that Sinatra always carried a bottle of liquor to make seeing Brando less irritating, while Brando simply responded with a smile and a challenging silence. Though Guys and Dolls was a huge success, the rift between them never healed. Insults continued to be traded in the press. Sinatra derided Brando, the lazy hippie masquerading as a genius. Brando countered in a squire. Frank Sinatra is not a singer. He's just a mood peddler wrapped in a tuxedo. Years later, when asked about Brando, Sinatra merely offered a smile. "I don't like men who want to play God. Their deaths were separated by nearly half a century. Yet Hollywood still recounts the tale, a tragedy named hubris. 2 egos, 2 extremes. They collided not to create a miracle, but to prove a bitter truth. True genius never shares a stage." If the battle between Brando and Sinatra was a duel of 2 colossal egos, the next clash was one that sent shivers down Hollywood's spine when Brando dared to publicly challenge a living saint of world cinema, Charlie Chaplin, the greatest hypocrite in England. In 1910, Marlon Brando and Charlie Chaplin worked together on the film A Countess from Hong Kong. The result was disastrous, with crew members later describing the experience as witnessing a battle among the gods. From day one, Brando felt alien to Chaplin's world. At over 70, Chaplin still made films the way he did in the 1930s. Slow, meticulous, and demanding actors be absolutely precise to his imagination. In contrast, Brando saw cinema as a space for genuine emotion, not mechanical, orchestrated theater. This philosophical difference made the set a form of torment for Brando. When Chaplin demanded he reshoot a scene embracing Sophia Loren for the 59th time, the pent-up fire in Brando erupted. He slammed the wine glass down and spat. "If you like acting so much, do it yourself, clown," an enraged Chaplin declared. "You are destroying my film." Brando retorted with a line that became legendary. "No, I am saving it from you." After that day's shooting, Brando walked off. Later, in an interview with Playboy, he spoke without reservation. "Chaplin is the greatest hypocrite in England. He talks about humanity and compassion, but he treats people like garbage." Brando's criticism of Chaplin was not baseless, as the comedy legend's perfectionism was notorious and feared by every actor. Sophia Loren, his co-star, admitted she couldn't stand his temperament. Chaplin was famous for his absolute control. He once made an extra reshoot a scene 120 times simply because he didn't feel the light in their eyes, had the right emotion. But that was just the surface. According to crew members, Chaplin obsessively controlled everything, allowing no changes to a single word of dialogue. Every action had to follow his counting. 1, 2, 3, head up, for smile, 5, glance. If anyone missed a beat, he'd yell, "Cut again," in someone cameraman Ray. Ha recalled that Chaplin made Brando's simple walk through a door be reshot 37 times. He felt his shadow was falling in the wrong emotional direction. He was like a tyrannical king with the face of a clown. When A Countess from Hong Kong premiered, it was a heavy failure. Critics called it the worst film by two of the biggest geniuses. Disappointed Brando never mentioned it again. Years later, when Chaplin passed away, Brando did not attend the funeral. However, a friend recounted that he once sat alone rewatching the classic City Lights and let out a weary, poignant sigh. "Perhaps I was wrong to act that way. After all, it was his perfectionism that made him successful." That statement was enough to show that even in his deepest loathing, Brando still revered the genius and the iron discipline that forged Chaplin's legend. Yet, if Brando and Chaplin were a battle between two arrogant geniuses, the next confrontation was even more severe. For this time, Brando not only disparaged a person, but destroyed an entire archetype of the American man that Hollywood once were ripped. Clint Eastwood, the media product for the public. Marlon Brando once frankly shared with a journalist that he not only disliked Clint Eastwood's acting style, but also despised the human image Hollywood painstakingly constructed around Eastwood. To Brando, Eastwood was not a genuine hero, but merely a whelp-polished product. An icon America needed to lull itself into comfort. He critically remarked, "The media paints him as righteous, but his private life is as filthy as anyone else's." Brando wasn't just talking. He read numerous articles about Eastwood's string of personal scandals, fleeting romances, paternity lawsuits, and the way he used his power to control women. Brando saw this as blatant hypocrisy. A man who played the virtuous lead on screen but was riddled with scandal in his life. Brando's disdain didn't stop there. He questioned Eastwood's acting. In his eyes, every Eastwood film was just a copy of a copy. Scowling face, a few guns, and some empty philosophical talk about justice. "He doesn't evolve," Brando said in a 1980 interview. "An artist must change, but he's still on a horse holding a gun like some guy stuck in the last century." Behind the icy facade and cowboy swagger, Brando saw a man obsessed with his own image. He believed Eastwood couldn't shed the cowboy role because without the hat, he would be nobody. At a film party in 1973, after a few drinks, Brando, who inherently disliked Eastwood's rigidity, uttered a phrase that froze the entire room. "Eastwood is the perfect symbol of America. Big, loud, and empty inside." Those words quickly reached Clint Eastwood, who was on the set of High Plains Drifter. He didn't erupt, only squinted and replied, "That's interesting, but maybe he should look at himself. After all, he's just like me." This incident sparked a persistent Cold War lasting over 30 years between the two legends. In Brando's eyes, Clint Eastwood wasn't the perfect American man. He was merely a media product painted by the studio bosses. Years after Brando's death, Eastwood was asked about the relationship. He paused for a few seconds, then closed the chapter with a witty admission. "We just didn't get along, that's all." But Clint Eastwood was never the one Brando hated the most. Because despite all the verbal warfare, there was still one name that made Brando truly lose control. Not out of jealousy, but because that person forced him to see the thing he feared most, a younger version of himself. James Dean, the beautiful-faced imposter. In Hollywood history, few relationships were as tragic and harsh as that between Marlon Brando and James Dean. This is the ultimate tragedy of a fervent fan and a cold idol, where admiration ultimately turned into obsession and bitterness. James Dean idolized Brando, absolutely. He channeled Brando's image in every gesture. From the low, husky voice and the expressive furrowed brow to the arrogant way he held a cigarette. In his early days in New York, Dean often quietly sat in Brando's regular cafe, secretly observing him. Dean even once wrote a sincere letter. "I don't mean tea.